from what I was doing yesterday. I was playing some videos from a video called Jordan Maxwell Debunked, because there's a lot of things about him that do not sit right with me or anyone that's realised that he is in direct controlled opposition. I'm going to try to find the video that played. Wait, just bear with me. Bookmarks. Here, where is it? Here somewhere. Part 2. We was on part 2, yeah. I mean, there is another version of this video, but I think this one is a bit easier to navigate around because it's in parts in it. So this one, Daily Motion.
Temple. We're told about King Solomon's temple. Incidentally, there was no King Solomon. So don't look for King Solomon in history, because there was no King Solomon. O-N. That's why when you walk into a room, you flip a switch of the new dictionary. O-N. That's why when you walk into a room, Solomon comes from the...
Yeah, he's talking about King Solomon not existing, but then Chris Wright, I think that's the guy that's in the video, right? He's saying that he did exist, but Jordan Maxwell says the opposite. So I'm just gonna share this out right now. Because you know something, there's been other researchers that have been documented this, about controlled opposition and why they've spread ideas that appear to be not good.
All about King Solomon's temple. Incidentally, there was no King Shlomo, yeah. And the word Solomon.
This is from where we was playing, so I'm going to start with this clip here.
Solomon comes from the Latin or Greek. So this could only work at a much later date, and I'm okay with that being something the mystery schools do, because they do seem to want to merge Judaism with sun worship, but Maxwell never seems to suggest that. He's always suggesting that it is the true history and that Solomon never existed, which is odd because it falls in line with what the mystery schools want us to believe and what they believe.
Look it up in any dictionary. O-N. That's why when you walk into a room, you flip a switch on.
Okay, let's just see if you can wrap your head around this stupidity here. What he is suggesting is that the Egyptian word for on, which has connotations to the sun, is why the English came up with the word on. Before the electric light was even invented, people were getting on their horses or whatever. So to say that the word on was invented anticipating our electric light, or to say that when they were trying to decide what to call the thing you would do to flip a switch of the new electric light, the Masons stepped in and said, "We shall call it on." It's just...
Basically, Jordan Maxwell, I remember watching him, he had a pattern of saying, oh, this word comes from this culture. That's why it says this or that. Like, for instance, like Brit and Ish, which is Hebrew and man. So it's becoming apparent that he just makes it up as it goes along. When he's talking, I mean that's what he's doing. It's pretty obvious that this guy is not an idiot. Or not informed. He is informed. He's just like giving his take on what's going on in the world, right? Supposedly it's exposing a conspiracy, but in reality he's just leading people astray, which is what controlled opposition does. Because the entire truth movement appears to be controlled from the beginning. And he did say once that he was a friend of the famous Freemason who wrote a number of books, Manly P. Hall, who a lot of people seem to admire, but I'm very skeptical of Manly P. Hall, simply because he appears to espouse theopsical kind of views, you could say.
Ridiculously stupid.
Because On was the city of the sun in Egypt. So the three words for the sun in the three esoteric languages of the world is Sol, Om, and On, Solomon. Look at the ground plan for Solomon's temple. Here's what it really is. You'll see the male phallic, and it's within the female. So the whole temple of Solomon, the holy is the male phallic, and the most holy is the head of the penis, and it goes into the female, which is called the temple of Solomon, the temple of life. And consequently, Solomon's temple was merely a representation of the sex act.
This is a little complicated, but Maxwell is telling you what Blavatsky believes, and he's also telling you what Albert Pike believes, and just about every Mason believes about the temple. They regard it as very, very symbolic and very important. The main problem is that the Hebrew people wrote more extensively about it and much more ancient and detailed writings about the temple, and their descriptions and reasoning for symbolism is vastly different than the modern writings of Blavatsky and Albert Pike. But this doesn't stop Maxwell from telling you which one is real and which one isn't. It's actually a symbol of Hiram Abiff, who the Masons believe to be a master Mason, and they actually don't really believe he was real either. They see him as a symbol of Osiris and the Osiris cycle of death and resurrecting. It is this tradition that is played out in Skull and Bones of the laying in the coffin and being reborn. That's why George Bush can say that he is born again when people ask him if he's a Christian. It all goes back to the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, and all initiates would lay into the sarcophagus of the Great Pyramid of Giza to be reborn into the mystery school tradition. Oddly, Maxwell has done that.
If you've never been in the Great Pyramid of Giza, I will tell you it's an extraordinary experience. I laid in the king's sarcophagus and was blessed in a ritual by a Kemite priest. Here we're told about the manna from heaven. I don't know if you've ever remember. Moses was leading the children of Israel to pick manna from heaven. They would find manna from heaven on the ground each morning, the scripture says. Here they are picking up the manna from heaven on the ground each morning. Here in Exodus 16:14, it says, "And when the dew that lay on the ground was gone up, behold, the face of the wilderness, there lay a small round thing." So they call it manna. Well, what is manna? The manna from heaven was a small round thing. And it says when the dew that was on the ground, of course, when the sun comes up, it evaporates. And behold, upon the face of the wilderness, there lay a small round thing. Manna, meaning Hebrew, what is it? And it's 7 characteristics from the old ancient world. Small, round, wafer-like, sweet, could be hard, can be melted, and it was obviously from heaven. Because when you ate the manna, you could talk to God.
Did you catch that? He moves on from that last characteristic, which was from heaven, and just simply says, because you could talk to God. Because it helps with his shrooms or manna theory. But the text in no way indicates or implies or suggests that manna had any purpose for talking to God or any other spiritual connotation whatsoever. It was strictly used for sustenance. Here, watch it again and watch how he makes the connections to mushrooms. Also take note of the other characteristics he mentions for manna.
Manna, meaning Hebrew, what is it? And it's 7 characteristics from the old ancient world. Small, round, wafer-like, sweet, could be hard, can be melted, and it was obviously from heaven. Because when you ate the manna, you could talk to God. Well, now we found out manna was a small round thing, mushrooms.
There are many problems in the text itself with trying to make mana psychedelic mushrooms. For instance, neither the psilocybin mushroom nor the Amanita muscaria mushroom will grow in the desert. The text also says that the mana would melt in the desert heat. This is not a characteristic of either one of those types of mushrooms, especially in the desert. In addition, it said that if it was left out, it would begin to stink and then get worms in it. Again, this is not the characteristic of either one of those mushrooms when they would simply dry up. It also makes it quite clear that they used manna every day for food. This would not be possible with either one of those mushrooms in nutritional value. In addition, in Exodus chapter 16:31, it says the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Anybody that's ever eaten psychedelic mushrooms will tell you they taste like a lot of things, but like wafers made with honey is not one of them.
And here are the priest of Israel. Here's the Hebrew priest of Israel wearing a mushroom on his head. The mushroom headdress. I've often wondered, see, because the mushrooms were a hallucinogenic drug. And I've often wondered, is that why they call the priest high priest?
I'm only addressing this one because I've actually received emails from people telling me that this is where the Hebrew term, the high priest, came from. Even Maxwell seems to know that this is an impossibility and is only using it as a bad joke. Because the term high priest, you must first realize, is an English slang term, the word high. In Hebrew, the word for high priest was gadol, which means great or large in number, intensity, loud, older, importance, that kind of thing. As far as their hats, kind of, sort of, maybe looking like mushrooms, I'm just not even going to address that.
Here in the catacombs of Rome, under the Vatican, you will find paintings in the old catacombs.
Just going to stop there for a bit. Many chicken in the chat. Hey Gordy. Well, my live stream is live, but the video, I'm just playing a video because I'm talking about controlled opposition, and I'm starting with Jordan Maxwell. I did one yesterday, playing this video. It's from Daily Motion, so I'm just I just want to get across how these people at controlled opposition mislead people. They put out truth, and then you discover that some of their facts are not backed up. They just it's make up as it goes along. So here,
catacombs of the Amanita muscaria being the sacred tree.
Maxwell is wrong on quite a lot here. It's nowhere near the Vatican. It's nowhere near Rome.
Okay, just gonna stop there right there. Okay. Now the guy that's done this video he's a gentleman by the name of Chris Wright. Chris Wright first appeared on the Corbett Report, yeah. If you remember the Corbett Report, James Corbett. And in the interview I do recall, yeah, where Chris Wright is saying that, back in the day when Zachariah Sitchin and Jordan Maxwell were putting out their claims, there wasn't a proper way to challenge what they were saying, because whatever they said was spread like wildfire. Yeah, this is before the internet was around, or before it really started to take off, and since then it has taken off, and years have gone by. People have caught the writings of Jordan Maxwell, such and other people, and started to challenge it. Because before, when they used to make these conspiratorial claims, they were not challenged rightly, so they were able to get away with a lot of crap, but now there are people out there who are challenging what they're saying. Because Jordan Maxwell is correct on political corruption and secret societies, yeah, and its role in history. He's right about those things, but then the astrotheology stuff is clear that he's obviously misleading people when he says they're all the same, they're all Saturnian worship and all that, because he's just showing you that how he simply is not telling the truth. He's just simply deceiving.
And it's not in a catacomb. It's actually in an abbey in Plaincoron, France. And know what he's trying to say is trying to show any kind of art in ancient history and saying it's proof of Christianity starting from a mushroom cult, when showing an artist representation from the 12th century about Adam and Eve, which is something, a very common motif for artists being commissioned back then anyway, and artists probably do a lot of shrooms, what does that prove? And even if you found it in the Vatican itself, if you found it underneath the Vatican, what would that prove? I mean, we've shown time and time again that all the Vatican is a continuation of the Roman religion. They turned their mini pantheon of gods into the saints, and they turned their top goddess into Mary. But the common enemy of Rome and the hybrid Christian/pagan Catholic Church was always real Christians. People that really believed in the Bible and really believed in Jesus Christ.
No, that is correct. That's what people need to understand when we're talking about Jesus Christ and the Christian religion, because that's what happened after he died. Because then years later the Catholic Church comes along and they completely subvert the whole thing. Hence that's why people believe he's born December 25th when he's not, which is what I said yesterday. Because I don't believe he was ever born December 25th. He was probably born some other month. I mean, I can't say what day exactly, but because it's speculated to say he was born in September, but I don't know. Or in the Islamic perspective, that he was born, Jesus Christ, he was born in a warmer period, warmer season, spring or summer.
Those people were the enemy of both Rome and the Catholic Church.
Of knowledge of good and evil. Well, the whole concept is if you take the mushroom, it opens up your mind to all kinds of off-the-wall things. Of course you can talk to God. All of the Jewish reference books, all the Encyclopedia Judaica, you go to the synagogue, go up into Mulholland Drive, up to the Jewish University and spend 3 weeks there and look up Saturn. You'll find out that 98% of all Judaism is a worship of the planet Saturn. Better wake up and understand where this stuff comes from.
Where this stuff comes from is quite simply Madame Helena Blavatsky, where Jordan Maxwell gets his name from, Jordanus Maximus. Maxwell is not...
There you go. For those of you who don't know, Jordan Maxwell's real name is Russell Pine, but he adopted the name Jordan Maxwell. Well, you know why? Because he follows this woman here, this Russian occultist and mystic, who claims that entities spoke to her. But obviously there's been a lot of ridicule by mainstream historians about her accounts of meeting with entities, because she was way out there. I mean, the only people that I ever talked to, like an angel, were all the prophets that came from Adam to Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad, they only came to them, but obviously she doesn't talk about angels. She just talks about entities. I mean spirit. I mean she's really saying demons, but that's another story.
He is not presenting any new information here. He is repeating almost verbatim what Blavatsky writes in her book, The Secret Doctrine. Again, this would not be notable if it were true. I've spent the last few days doing as Maxwell suggests in this clip and tried to track down any record of what he is saying in history besides Madame Blavatsky. After much study, it appears the root of the idea comes from the Roman historian Tacitus. This is what Tacitus says. Keep in mind, Tacitus worshipped Saturn, and in other places in this writing, it was obvious that he had been given false information about what the Torah actually said. He says, "We are told that the seventh day was set aside for rest, because this marked the end of their toils. In course of time, the seductions of idleness made them devote every seventh year to indolence as well. Others say that this is a mark of respect to Saturn, either because they obey the basic principles of their religion to Idii, who, we are told, were expelled in the company of Saturn."
Sorry about that. Just carry on.
"And became the founders of the Jewish race, or because among the 7 stars that rule mankind, the one that describes the highest orbit and exerts the greatest influence is Saturn, A further argument is that most of the heavenly bodies complete their path and revolutions in multiples of 7. Whatever their origins, these observances are sanctioned by their antiquity. The other practices of the Jews are sinister and revolting, and have entrenched themselves by their very wickedness. Wretches of the most abandoned kind. It should be noted that in Tacitus's writing, it is very anti-Semitic. In addition, as a Roman, Tacitus worshipped Saturn, and while writing to the Roman emperor, it's very likely that he has, as he did in other places in the writing, forced Roman religion on the Jewish history. I encourage you to read Tacitus's account of the Jewish history, because this fact becomes quite obvious, and is noted copiously by the many scholars who have reviewed his work. It should be noted that Blavatsky uses this writing of Tacitus to build her theory that Judaism came from Saturn worship in her book Isis Unveiled Volume 2, which Jordan Maxwell says in an interview is his favorite book. And this is yet another example of him telling us that true history is Madame Blavatsky's history, despite the lack of any other supportive data.
Lucius all mean in Latin light. This is why you have Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is Lucius walking across the sky, and he's doing battle with the Prince of Darkness, whose name in the Egyptian was Set, S-E-T, because they noticed it got dark at sunset.
Like so many of Jordan Maxwell's word insights, this could only work in modern English. The ancient Egyptians' word for the sun setting sounded nothing like the word Set, as in their god Set. And they never called him the Prince of Darkness either. Maxwell forces the term on Set because he needs it to prop up this theory. This is very deceptive, certainly not something you'd want from a teacher. Some have suggested that Maxwell is just telling us what the mystery school believes, not what he believes or what real history is. But he says quite the opposite, and in fact never in this 3-hour presentation ever mentions that this is what the mystery schools believe. He says quite plainly, this is real history.
Me. Yahweh is not the name of God. Yahweh in Hebrew is an expressive term. It's expressing something. It's describing something. It's not a formal name of God. Yahweh in Hebrew simply means, and the best way to explain what the word means is to take a garden hose and hold the end of it, turn on the water, and you feel the pressure building up. When you release the hose, it's a release of pressure. It's a release of energy. In the Hebrew, in the ancient Hebrew, the release of dynamic energy was called Yahweh. And it was always associated with sex. It's the building up of the sexual urge, and the releasing of sex in the sex act was referred to in the ancient Phoenician Canaanite system as being one with Yahweh.
This is a series of huge lies from Jordan Maxwell. I encourage anyone to go try and research that in ancient Hebrew, the release of dynamic energy was called Yahweh, and that it was always associated with sex. There's a lot of debate on the meaning of Yahweh, but those debates come to no conclusion anything like Maxwell's. In ancient Hebrew, the word Yahweh, also referred to as the Tetragrammaton, can mean many things. Meanings like He that hath sent me, He who is always the same, He who is absolutely truly existent, He has, He is, He will be. Some suggest I am the one I am, or I am whatever I need to become. Maxwell's definition, although it comes directly from Blavatsky, stems from the idea that Yahweh could have come from the proper name of the Phoenician Canaanite god Yam. It was at this point that Madame Blavatsky writes in her book, The Theosophical Glossary, the meaning that Jordan Maxwell will one day use to say what he just said. Although he adds quite a bit in his definition in order to fit with his previous theory that anoint means to anoint with sexual fluid in the hopes of trying to paint the picture of Jesus Christ being anointed with semen. Keep in mind what Blavatsky is saying here offers no sources or previous support of any kind, not to mention be considered Neoplatonic form. This opinion rested chiefly on certain misinterpreted testimonies in Greek authors about a god. Blavatsky says it was derived from Greek and could be considered Neoplatonist. That's well after the time of Christ. Maxwell is wrong on several levels here. I'd like to point out that Wikipedia makes a good point when it says, in its earlier form, this opinion rested chiefly on certain misinterpreted testimonies in Greek authors about a god, Lao, and this was conclusively refuted by Baudissin. Recent adherents of this theory build more largely on the occurrence in various parts of the territory of proper names of persons and places. Okay, now I'd like to point out this is exactly what Maxwell says at the beginning of the clip that Yahweh is not, and that is based on a proper name. He says it's a concept. Again, he's referring to the Kabbalah Gnostic, but this is much later, and it's not even close to his actual definition. It's important to realize that the Canaanite god's name was Yam, not Yao. Again, I encourage you guys to go out there and try to find any record that the ancient Hebrew people's word for the release of dynamic sexual energy was Yahweh. Good luck. As you may have guessed by now, Jordan Maxwell is not this man's real name, and I don't have any kind of problem with that. Using a pseudonym is a perfectly reasonable and understandable practice. But there is something a little fishy with the name that Jordan Maxwell chose. Here's why. In Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky's book, Isis Unveiled, Volume 2, Theology, she tells us what her version of the Nazarene Trinity is. And she tells us that the second in the Trinity is Jordanus Maximus. It is said that Jordanus Maximus, the water of life, he is the one through whom we alone can be saved. Now, on Jordan Maxwell's website, there's a section where it just lists a bunch of words that Jordan Maxwell is encouraging people to just do their homework on. Apparently because he's just so good with words. And one of those words is Jordanus Maximus, and it has some question marks to the side of it. And then it's the only word that has a little addendum to the right. That addendum says, this term was brought to Jordan's attention in an email he received from a rabbi. We thought we'd just throw this one in. This clearly implies that Jordan is claiming not to have any knowledge of the term Jordanus Maximus, at least up until he could get emails from rabbis. And considering emails are pretty late and his career has been pretty long, this is saying that he had no idea up until pretty recently.
Part 4 of the 7 videos.
Of this term Jordanus Maximus. Now again, this term comes from Madame Blavatsky's book, Isis Unveiled, Volume 2, Theology. So keep that in mind as we listen to this next.
Thank you. Yeah. Gentlemen, have you ever heard or read?
Now, this is the key thing. This totally... I mean, I didn't see this clip a few years ago, but I've heard that he was quoted as... There was a little video I seen where he's saying he's an admirer of Helena Blavatsky. So this video pretty much confirms it, and it does. I mean, people who follow him, follow his ideas, Jordan Maxwell's ideas about astrotheology. Every religion is Saturn worship. You know, Islam's Saturn worship, Judaism is, Christianity is, all of them are. I mean, he'll say he believes in God on the one. I mean, he's like David Icke. They all say, we believe in God, there is a creator of the universe, but we think all the religions are just Saturn worship. End of story. That's what they are. But this one shows undoubtedly that they derive their ideas from a 19th century Russian mystic, occultist.
Mrs. Blavatsky.
By the way, Blavatsky also inspired Gandhi as well. Mahatma Gandhi. I didn't say his first name right.
She's
Helena Petrovna Blavatsky?
Right.
Yes, I have all of her works.
You have?
Yes.
Well, that's why. Yes.
I think her best work was Isis Unveiled, Part 2, which is theology.
Right. science.
And that was an exceptional work. I think that Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, the Russian mystic, was a very wise and perceptive lady, and she had some very profound knowledge, obviously, and her academic achievements were extraordinary, and so I have a very high respect for the work of Helena Blavatsky.
So are we really to believe?
There you go. There you go. He has just reading this. I read Blavatsky. It sucks. It's just regurgitating other mystics stuff. Anyway, not impressed. Yeah. I mean, look. It's revealing to you that their ideas are not theirs. So when you hear people talk about, Jesus being fiction, or stuff like this, it all goes back to, maybe not to her, Helena Blavatsky, but it's obvious that there wouldn't be a new age alternative media, because there's different factions in the controlled opposition alternative media. One of them is the new age stuff. Would it exist if it wasn't for Blavatsky? Because I wouldn't be surprised if she's connected to Manly P. Hall, but she's connected to Ike Maxwell, Tessarian as well. I'm just gonna play some more, but I'm not gonna be able to play the whole thing. I'll play some other.
To believe that Jordan Maxwell had no.
So yeah, I'm just gonna play this clip quickly before I run off, because I haven't got much time.
Previous knowledge of the term Jordanus Maximus.
He's saying here he doesn't know the term Jordanus Maximus, even though he's read all the books of Helena Blavatsky that mentions this name Jordanus Maximus, a name that he adopted, and he's Jordan Maxwell, even though his real name is Russell Pine.
The second in the trinity of Helena Blavatsky, in her book Isis Unveiled, Volume 2, Theology, which he clearly says is his favorite book. This man, claiming to be a great wordsmith, didn't know that until he got an email from a rabbi? Something doesn't add up. Listen to Maxwell here, and then listen to Frank Lordy as he describes a little bit about why we should be concerned about what Maxwell is saying.
I believe that the church and religion in general in the Western world, which is to say Judaism and Christianity, have given to the world much good and has been beneficial. But like any and all technologies and thinking, it has also brought with it many things which have hurt the human family. And so I think that this is why the human family is being mutated. I think we're being brought into a new world that you are not going to recognize in the next 20 to 50 years. I think this is going to be necessary because the way we're going now, our world is out of control. The violence and the hatred among peoples is going to have to be done away with. We're going to have to do something about the facts of life. And the facts of life is that other people are on this earth and you didn't put them there. Other people are on this earth because the God who created life has allowed all of us to be here, and somewhere along the line there's got to be order on this planet. And I believe that there are certain individuals are ordained to make sure that happens. So I don't have any problem with power. I have problems with people who misuse power. But those people who have the power to do something for the good of mankind, I am sure that they are working around the clock, taking care of their business.
Any seeker of truth instantly should pick up on the catchphrase, "Oh, there will be order. Order is coming." Remember, order out of chaos. So
Just gonna stop it right there. So look, so there you go. He's talking about how he's got no problem with power. It's been misused. Now that might sound plausible, but he doesn't seem particularly bothered about the people. I mean, he's saying that there's another force that's also in existence that are going to bring about much needed change. So the one hand he'd be like, yes, he opposes the so-called Illuminati, so-called global elite, but then he doesn't oppose those that are going to bring about the change, to bring about order, or something of that kind. A bit strange. Tells you all you need to know. He seems to be pro New World Order, based on that clip alone that I just played. So I gotta go right now. I want to continue with that clip. I will carry on from that clip at a later stream. Maybe during my lunchtime I will. But we'll see. See you guys soon. Thanks for watching.